Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coworking Values Podcast, the podcast of the European Coworking Assembly. And we're back for another exciting remote episode here. Before talking to remote,
what do you mean? Wait a minute. So have we ever done a live episode like you and me beside each other?
No, we haven't.
So everything's remote so far. Every episode was remote. So like we're not back in the saddle. This is what we do.
We did record we didn't actually record together, but we have recorded in person at Coworking Europe.
Yes, I stand corrected.
But that was, well, I wasn't trying to correct you. I'm too scared to do that. But
let's hear from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Cobot, a leading management software for co-working spaces, office hubs, and flexible workspaces around the world. You know, one of the best things about Cobot is that it is produced by people who manage a co-working space and know the ins and outs of the main problems and issues bugging co-working managers. So if you want more time for your coworkers and community, check out Cobot at cobot.me and take your co-working management to the next level.
I love the way you say that every week. That's just,
you know, I train myself to do exactly the same kind of tone, voice, script, whatever.
I'm touched, moved, and inspired by your commitment to our sponsors. So here in the studio, I'm gonna say Pilar.
Pilar.
You see, we have a lot of friends in Argentina, and they're called Pilar, but they're called a slightly different version of Pilar. So, you know, this is always, anyway, one of my
Bernie has a problem with names, my name, every guest's name, every
my
episode.
family members' names, my wife's name,
well,
which is,
I hope that, she doesn't mind, or you wouldn't be married.
She does mind. It's a bone of contention. But so Pilar is one of my oldest podcasting, remote working friends. And even before everyone went remote crazy, probably like 10 years ago, was it? Where did we meet? It was at a podcast event in London.
Yes, it was. Maybe I would say at 5 or 6 years ago or something. I don't know about 10. That seems a lot, but definitely 5 or 6.
I was just shouting out things, and a lot of so Pilar does a podcast. I'll let you explain it accurately in a minute. But a lot of what I've learned about remote working and working, whatever the word is nowadays, has come from following Virtual Not Distant and your friend Lisette Sutherland and that kind of area. So this sounds like, I always feel like this is like your time now.
Well, yes. What I've realized over the last few months is that business was slow before, and it was because we didn't have a big customer base. And now we have a huge customer base. So business is booming, which is nice. But it's changed. It's not what I was doing before the pandemic. It's not the same as what I'm doing now. I'm meeting people at a completely different point in the transition. Before they were about to transition. Now they've transitioned already. I need to pull back and transition again. So interesting times.
So just to be really clear, if I was going to hire you, what would I hire you for?
Mainly to work with the managers of your organization or the manager of your team to have a look at, okay, how do we need to change, one, the leadership style, because we know that we need slightly different, and I'm going to say slightly different leadership styles in the remote space, but also to look at collaboration practices for the team, how that has changed, which there is a big component that needs to change if you're working online.
And what is, I'm so excited, I don't know where to begin. So because when you said collaboration, that the other, just to go off topic, that popped into my thing. The pod, I don't know if you still do it. We used to do a podcast episode every year, which was the bullshit words that people are throwing around, like global and collaboration and community and thing. Does that still happen?
No, we do. It depends on what's happened during the year. Sometimes we're about trends. Sometimes we're about words, and words is always nice. Why did you want to pick up on collaboration? What it means, or you just thought that's it reminded you of that episode?
what do people understand of that? Because there's two groups of people in our lives at the moment. There's people like Željko and me and you that are used to, working online or working remotely, and you can define that a little bit more after this. And then there's people that, like, one thing that really struck me at the beginning of the pandemic back in March, and I was invited to, I was like the only person that some people knew who knew about how to work remotely.
Yes.
So I could have just, ridden the wave as the remote work expert, but I know so many other people that are genuinely remote work experts. I thought I'd get a kick in from the community if I did that. But they were like, I just thought people knew how to run calls with Google Meet and Zoom and, do stuff from their phone. But there's like millions of people that don't. And I don't mean to sound a knob there, but, I was just amazed at how many people didn't know how to run a remote team.
Well, I'll go back to collaboration and the tagline that I use when I'm introducing asynchronous communication, which is collaboration doesn't only happen in meetings. And this is not new, but the first part is that, as you're saying, when we think collaboration, a lot of people think, real time talking together and doing stuff together real time. That is not sustainable online. So the first thing is, yes, a lot of people had resisted using the online meeting tools to their full potential. And even people who'd been using them, like big global corporations who'd been using them for 10 or 15 years, like I came across people, oh no, we don't turn on the camera because of bandwidth. You're like, what? In 2019 or 2018, we're not having problems anymore like we used to. So there was that. There were the people who were already using them, but were using them like they were used 10 years ago. And then the people who never had to use them. And so they've discovered that you can have good conversations in meeting platforms, that you can create some sort of energy or different kind of energies online also, that groups and one-to-ones, you can have a conversation online now that is, it's more uncomfortable than in the room, but it's pretty good. And sometimes that discomfort is offset by the fact that you don't have to go to places. But I think the bigger piece is that we need to remember that collaboration is made up of lots of pieces, and collaboration is made up of different types of communication. So you start to break down and then you see, well, one kind of communication we do in meetings, another kind of communication we do in our project management tool, another kind of communication we do through a shared Google Doc where we share our thoughts, another kind of communication by uploading a photograph of a sketch I came up this morning with. So I think that's been the first hurdle, is like you can still stay in touch and work together without being together real time.
Well, in your session that I attended on I can never say it, Re-People, the conference, which we'll put a link in the show notes to, it was about visible
teamwork.
Visible teamwork, and that's something I'm finding pretty hard. Is because I've always been in remote teams, but not being around each other, and then people are saying about how they're missing that kind of bumping into, chatting at the water cooler kind of thing, and they're not really, they're just not really sure where everybody is. And can you say a bit about that?
I'm going to jump in here. Sorry, Pilar. But bumping into the water cooler, is a topic that is not just for people that are missing contact and chit chat and stuff like that. So we noticed, and actually that is what we personally noticed in our space and in several organizations I'm in touch with, is you have collaboration and you have project management on one side and communication on an existing project. But what people are like kind of missing in remote work is the innovation, the ideas that come from, well, basically informal or talk or chit chat that you come by near a water cooler or during coffee or during breakfast or lunch breaks, just by asking somebody, what are you working on today? And he, spills his problems. And then you may say a solution or you may not, but it may spark an idea in your head about something that you can implement later on. Maybe, or just a root an idea in your mind that later on spark something different. And that is what people are basically telling me they're missing in remote work. Now, I'm just going to ask you to also comment on your views on innovation in a remote environment.
So I'll put innovation to one side.
Yeah.
But visible teamwork, which Bernie was talking about, is made up of three sets of principles: deliberate communication, work visibility, and planned spontaneity. So talking about what you're talking about, what organizations are missing, because I'm getting that same sense that teams are figuring out how to work together, but there's the whole across the organizational piece that's missing, either how to work across teams formally or how to bump into people informally. So I'll say that again, planned spontaneity. Spontaneity is very difficult to come by in the remote space, and we just have to accept that, but that's okay. And what we need to do is plan things that will allow us to have those conversations. But it's also a mindset, because that's one of the things with asynchronous communication. If we as an organization have put a space online, which could be, I don't know, it could be one channel in Slack if we're not too big, or it could be a document that's easily accessible by anyone at any point, and you have something that you want to share, you don't need to wait for a real-time conversation. You find the space in that moment that you have that idea and you put it there. The only thing is that you have to wait some time until someone else comes and checks that document. But if you have laid down a process, agreed to that, if people are doing it, which is the problem, because these habits are very difficult to start again, because we're used to bumping into each other, but we're not used to having to go and check a document to see if someone left something for us. So you have a process, and then you have to change your behaviors and go inside and do that differently. So this is also not a new problem. There's something called Mr. Rogers that Trello, the company, now part of Atlassian, does, and they still do it at Atlassian, where they have a system by which they pair up people, and randomly you're paired every 2 weeks to talk to someone in the organization, and then you come back to that Trello board and you write down a few things that you talked about, so that conversation, which was only had between two people, is amplified. Then whoever wants to go and look and be nosy, they can do that. So we've got apps like Donut in Slack that do this. So it's really about how can we do this, but we've got to do it differently. We can't pretend that this is like the co-located space. So it's that. And then if we want people to come up with ideas and share them, if we're looking at innovation, okay, what do our people need for that? They need stimulation. So are we bringing in outside speakers? Are we giving them sessions that are not just a virtual coffee water cooler where you come in and talk about anything, but we themed them? Are we giving enough variety so that the people who thrive on purely social interactions have that? But the people who actually really just want to talk about work, but informally and outside of their tasks, or talk about the industry, that they also have a space. But you've got to plan for it. It's not going to work otherwise.
So basically, you mentioned a lot of planning, and I'm going to just ask out there. So does remote collaboration and remote work require a lot more planning than just office work?
Well, you need to build the ecosystem, and that's where the planning is. It's not that you constantly have to be planning, but I'll go back to an example I've been using for ages, and I saw it used the other day in an article. I don't know if it was the HBR or whatever, but the famous example of Pixar building the long corridor, so you had to go through a lot of people until you got to the toilet. That is planning. It's just that we planned it when we built the building. So now we need to plan our new workspace, which is online. And I think that people think, oh, I work from home. No, you don't. That's like your city. But actually, your work is on your computer. And I think maybe it's that shift also. So planning has to happen. But once it's there, that's it. Then you develop new habits. Everything becomes second nature. And then you can be spontaneous. But there's going to be that period, especially of adjustment, where you've got to say, well, this is different.
And basically, I'm going to ask another, from your experience. So we're mentioning a lot of apps, a lot of software, a lot of things that can help you within remote work. So does that mean that you need to use a ton of them, or is there, a set or a few of them that work for everything that a company needs? I'm guessing that each company is different, but considering that we need, in most cases, train a lot of the employees or get them used to using one app or another, or you do project management and this, you do collaboration and this, we talk on Zoom, we write in Slack, we use Google Docs, we use a ton of them. So how are people accepting that fact on multi app ecosystems?
You need as many different apps as with as many different interactions that you've got. I think we need to be thinking about what are the interactions we want to have, and then you start building. If all you need in your team is real-time interactions, and that's enough. So if we do a quick stand-up in the morning and then do a quick debrief in the end of the day because we all have the same schedule, then maybe all you need is a video collaboration tool, and then a video meeting tool and some kind of project management tool. And that's it. But if you if you have flexible schedules with people in different time zones, and you want to capture some of those informal conversations and blah, blah, then you'll need more. So I think that we really need to pull back. And this is why I went into the space, because this is when it gets interesting. We need to pull back and go, what do we need? How do we work? How do we want to work? And what kind of interactions? This is, of course, more at a team level, because that's where you get the detail. And then you probably need a handful. You need a handful, I think, if you have a meeting platform, a conversation, asynchronous, open conversation platform, some kind of simple project management tool like Trello, and then a suite where you can work like Google Docs or Microsoft. That's enough. And that shouldn't be too much. A lot of not a lot, but some of the companies I've been working with or I'm working with, they've already been using Google for ages. Well, you just need to add one or two things and you're done. But maybe you need to adjust to how you're using them. So I don't think you need to use lots, but you need to understand what kind of interactions you've got and then decide what you need to use.
Have you got... I'm asking on behalf of a friend. So you just started a company in at this time, because there's one thing if you were working beforehand and then you got thrown into the pandemic. And I was interested what you said before we came on about working remotely versus working from home during a pandemic. That's an interesting thing. But if you just started, is there anything different from what you've just explained? Like if you're forming a team during this enforced remote work?
I think if you're forming a team, then it might be good to think about how to build that ecosystem from scratch and I think it will require more imagination than dissection of what you're already doing and what you need, because you might second guess a lot of the stuff. So I think about the nature of the work. Think about, there's this thing about task interdependence, which is, are people going to work in a pooled way, which is five people are going to work together, but actually they're going to do pretty much independent tasks from each other? Is it going to be sequential, by which I do something, then Bernie does something, then Selko does something? Or are we going to be reciprocal, where actually there's more of a backwards and forwards? So maybe you can start there. And from there, you can start to see what kind of ecosystem you might need. Because if everyone's going to be doing pretty much their own thing, maybe you just need two tools where you can have some conversations, some virtual coffees, and some, strategic planning, and that's it. But if you're sequential or if you're reciprocal, then you might need something a little bit more sophisticated. So just think about what different people might be doing and the kind of interactions that they're going to need to do their job and to feel connected to each other.
Did you trademark virtual coffee?
No, I didn't. In fact, that comes back from the first time I came across the term was with Happy Melly, now Management 3.0, when I joined them with Liz. No. I think I'm going to ditch the term virtual coffee, because I think some people are going to be allergic to it very soon. They've had too much.
What is the other thing that has always come up in this conversation is I remember doing Lisette's workshop in London years ago. It's about knowing when to be on and when to be off, because if you're in a physical environment, there's ways to avoid interruptions, and you can go and sit in a deliberate quiet space. But when you're in Slack or WhatsApp or Yammer or any of those things, there's people just wait. Have you got? So I think my question is, how do you set boundaries? Because if you're like being WhatsApped by 3 different people 3 times an hour, it's always breaking your concentration. So how do you set boundaries?
So I'm going to become a very serious advocate about this, because I'm hearing so much stuff that I think it's time to say individuals have to take charge of their own notifications. You have to take responsibility of how your device is communicating with you. Someone I know the other day, he works from the sofa in the morning, so he sends emails in the morning and to his team. And his boss complained the other day, said, "Can you stop sending emails in the moment?" And my friend is like, well, don't check your email so early. He says, "Yeah, but it's pinging my phone." Well, can't you stop the pinging? "Yeah, but I also have my personal emails on my work email." Okay. So that is one. The other is, like you say, well, if you can mute some channels. Slack and Basecamp have times during which you can set them so that they don't ping you outside of the hours you want to. I'm also going to stand on like my soapbox and say WhatsApp is a great instant messaging tool and not a collaboration tool. And also it's also used a lot for personal stuff. And that's where I've actually been, I've said to people, don't use WhatsApp. WhatsApp for me is for emergencies. There's 10,000 other tools that we can use that I can leave in my desktop or that I can put in a different screen on my phone so that my personal time, WhatsApp is where I talk to my mother. So there's that. I think phones are the problem. I don't think it's remote work. And so by agreeing how we're going to do this together in the team and then taking personal responsibility to understand if you're going to, talking back to the point about training in a platform, if you're going to learn one thing about the tool you're using, you have to learn how to switch on and off the notifications. And I think it's the team's responsibility to talk about how we want to work and where our boundaries are going to be, and then the individual to make sure it's working for them.
I'm a bit upset because I do everything through WhatsApp.
Oh, God.
You know? I'm like,
see, Bernie, we need to close all those WhatsApp groups.
I'm really like I just shut it off. Like it's I don't. There's very few people I answer like after 6 o'clock.
At the end, it's what's working for you, what works for you. But I think it's a conversation, especially for people who've had to transition to remote, because WhatsApp is something they already knew. They've used that. So I think it's worth revisiting, not for you, but, you know, I don't know what you're doing, but it's always worth revisiting.
I don't know what I'm doing.
That makes 5,000 of us.
No, but when we talk about WhatsApp, I'm just going to say that it depends on which country you're in, because
That's true.
Now I have about 4 different messaging apps, because WhatsApp, for me, WhatsApp is only for communicating with Bernie and the ECA, because nobody here is using WhatsApp, at least not on that level as, for example, Viber, which everybody's on, and every school group or children's group or whatever we need to be on is, you know, the standard here in Serbia. So when I last talked to my friend in Australia, and she talked to me, well, let's talk. Okay, do you want to use WhatsApp or Viber? Viber, what's that? Oh, my kids use Viber. And everybody after the age of 12 is using WhatsApp. So, unless Serbia. But then you have Telegram, then you have Messenger, then you have, I have no idea how much I have, but for each client, for each person in a country where they're using, you need to be adaptive.
Why is Viber so prevalent in
I have
Serbia?
No idea. I have no idea.
And it's in Poland as well.
But by using all of these, I'm actually liking more Telegram and WhatsApp, but you need to be on Viber because everybody else is. And the groups that you need are actually there. So basically it's the same thing. So I have no idea, apart from the graphics involved, the difference between them. And of course, the the person behind them or the company behind them.
Yeah. And so I'm gonna here. You know, when I said resist entering another topic, the messaging platform is going to be for another podcast.
Yes.
I'm going to knock it on the head there because I can feel myself itching towards dissecting the merits of each platform. So where can we find you online?
I'm going to say something about that though, Bernie, because it's always much easier to talk about the tech than about the interactions we want to have with each other and how we're going to work together. So it's a very important thing to look out for, especially in teams, that it's so easy to talk about tech. So virtualnotdistant.com is where you can find me, at Pilar Orti on Twitter.
And do you want to say about your podcast? Because that's your no small feat.
And this is
it?
a podcast, so
yes.
We promote other podcasts.
So there is, get your pens ready. So this 21st Century Work Life, that's the Virtual Not Distant podcast. And that is we look at leading remote teams, online collaboration, and working in distributed organizations. So that's the flagship where we've gone past 250. So I'm very proud of that show. I also co-host Facilitation Stories with IAF England and Wales. So that might be of interest also to people. And my Pocket Psych, which is all about thriving in the world of work, which is part of Work Life Psych.
So lazy.
I know. I've got others, but they're all pod faded.
That's great. It was great to have you. I loved your workshop at Read People, and we're going to find some more excuses to podcast with you. Any final words, Comrade Zelko?
No. As far as I think this was a very interesting episode, and everybody who missed it should listen to it again.
There we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you fire over to coworkingassembly.eu and count to 8 seconds, I think it is, and a little banner will pop up and say, would you like to join our email? Let's do that. And every week we will email you what's going on with the podcast, events around events around co-working in Europe. The next big thing coming up is the Research Group for Collaborative Spaces event at the beginning of December. And the Co-working Library is running a big, I want to say hackathon, but I think Joe's not going to be very happy with me. It's another thing where, and that the Research Group for Collaborative Spaces is one of the most exciting groups of people in the world. They are people who run co-working spaces, and there's a lot of people researching workspaces, maker spaces, how we work, how we learn off each other from universities all around the globe. So link in the show notes to that, and have a great week and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.